For many years, the remote village of Green Hollow lived in a fragile balance between hardship and hope. The people had survived storms, beasts, and droughts, yet nothing compared to the calamity that struck one quiet spring morning. Without warning, the water that had always flowed from the mountain spring simply vanished. Wells dried within days. Gardens shriveled. Livestock collapsed under the burning sun. Eliot, a small, clever boy known more for his quick mind than his strength, watched helplessly as the village faded into desperation. He was not a hero. At least, no one believed he was. But he carried a heart too loyal to abandon anyone, human or beast. The village elders consulted maps, legends, anything that might explain the sudden disappearance of the spring. Eventually, the oldest among them suggested climbing the high ridge where the spring originated. A group of the strongest men set out, climbing the treacherous slope. Eliot followed them from afar with his faithful donkey, Pip, while his older brothers, Roland, Bram, and Kay, rode ahead on their tall horses. When the men reached the top, they discovered a massive boulder had slid down from the peak, sealing the water's path like a stopper in a bottle. But the spring rested on a cliff so steep, no one could climb near enough to push the rock away. The men returned devastated, certain their village's end was sealed. Days passed. Food dwindled. The last handfuls of grain were rationed between the children and the animals. Eliot, unable to watch anyone starve, not even Pip, convinced his brothers to search the deep desert valleys for food or game. Though they doubted the journey would help, they saddled their horses, and Eliot followed on his little donkey. They traveled through blistering dunes until exhaustion forced them to rest beneath a colossal, ancient tree rising like a forgotten monument from the sand. As they caught their breath, the ground trembled. A monstrous wolf, larger than any creature they had imagined, charged across the dunes toward them. The brothers didn't hesitate. They scrambled up the giant tree, leaving their horses and Eliot's small donkey below. Pip brayed in fear as the wolf snarled, stalking toward the smallest prey first. Eliot's heart twisted painfully. Pip had never left his side, never complained, never failed him. And now, abandoned and defenseless, the loyal creature faced death alone. Without thinking, Eliot leapt from the tree, gripping his small knife. He landed on the wolf's back, clinging tightly as the beast thrashed and snapped. The knife barely pierced the wolf's thick hide, but Eliot refused to let go. For a moment, it seemed he might prevail, but the wolf bucked violently, throwing him to the ground. The world blurred. Hot breath touched his face as the wolf bent down, teeth bared. Eliot heard his brothers yelling from above, not in courage but regret. He brought this on himself, one muttered bitterly. But before the wolf could strike, Pip lunged forward and clamped his jaws onto the beast's tail with surprising force. The wolf howled, spinning in rage. Eliot scrambled backward, certain he was about to die alongside his faithful companion. Then a sound split the sky. A shadow, vast as a storm cloud, swept over the desert. When Eliot lifted his gaze, he saw a creature from legend, a rock, an enormous sky bird whose wings seemed to hold back the sun itself. With terrifying grace, the rock plunged downward, seized the wolf in its talons, and soared away, the beast's cries fading into the heavens. Silence followed. Eliot lay trembling beside his donkey, staring after the massive bird. His brothers climbed down, shame burning in their eyes. For the first time, they understood the bravery of the boy they once mocked. They pressed onward, eventually entering a narrow canyon where something glittering caught the sunlight. As they approached, they froze in disbelief. Nestled among jagged rocks lay an egg larger than any boulder, an egg belonging to the rock. Roland's eyes gleamed with hunger. "This could feed everyone back home," he whispered. Eliot felt dread coil in his stomach. "We can't take it," he warned. "The rock saved us. If we steal its egg, it will destroy the entire village." But his brothers were blinded by desperation and returned to the village to fetch a wooden cart. Eliot stayed beside the egg, praying the rock wouldn't return. But it did. The giant bird descended silently, checking its egg before taking off again, leaving Eliot hiding behind a stone with his heart pounding. Hours later, his brothers returned with villagers and a cart. Despite Eliot's pleas, they wrestled the egg into the wagon and dragged it back home beneath shouts of celebration. Fires were lit, pots prepared, and the entire village danced. Certain salvation had arrived. Eliot stepped back from the crowd, eyes fixed on the sky. Then he saw it. The rock descended like a thunderbolt, wings carving the air, talons ready to strike. The bird's cry shook the earth as it spotted its stolen egg. Panic exploded through the village. People scattered. One archer fired an arrow in fear, striking the rock in the leg. Screeching in agony, the creature retreated, but not in defeat. It would return. Eliot ran toward the elders. "We have to return the egg before the rock destroys us." Reluctantly, the villagers agreed, but no one dared face the monster. "I will take it back," Eliot said softly. And so, under a burning sky, he and Pip pulled the giant egg back toward the canyon. Near the rocky pass, a desert serpent, long as a river and hungry beyond reason, slid out from the sands. It coiled toward the egg. Eliot stepped between them, knife in hand. His legs shook, but he would defend the rock's egg as fiercely as he had defended Pip. As the serpent lunged, a wind rushed above him. The rock returned, talons piercing the snake's spine. The creature collapsed, lifeless. The massive bird approached Eliot, not with fury, but with a calm, heavy gaze. Eliot noticed the arrow lodged in its leg, the wound deep and painful. Summoning all courage, he stepped closer and gently pulled the shaft free. The rock flinched, but did not attack. Instead, it bowed its head, an acknowledgement, a thank you. Then the bird lifted its egg with surprising tenderness. Eliot watched it rise into the sky, his mission complete, until sorrow washed over him. Nothing had changed for the village. The people still faced starvation and thirst. The rock circled overhead, sensing the boy's despair, and swooped down again. It knelt, lowering its wings as though inviting Eliot to climb onto its back. "Are you offering help?" Eliot whispered. With Pip watching nervously below, Eliot mounted the enormous creature. They launched into the sky, soaring over mountains and valleys until they reached the blocked spring. Villagers below stared in disbelief. Eliot and the rock worked together, ropes fastened around the boulder, men pulling from below, and the rock pushing with its mighty head. The rock finally broke free. Water burst out like a newborn river, rushing through canals, fields, and thirsty soil. Cheers shook the valley. Children danced in the puddles. Life returned to Green Hollow. And as the rock lifted into the sky one last time, Eliot whispered his gratitude. He had saved his people, not through strength, but through loyalty, courage, and kindness toward even the fiercest of creatures. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell if you are interested in stories. There are more interesting stories. Write to us in the comments which country you listened to the story from, and see you in another story.